The G20 leaders have kind of given an ultimatum to the Eurozone to resolve the crisis and the talks that have been ongoing for a long while now. And we've got Ritu Jindal to point out more details and the details that we've got emerging from that G20 meet which concluded in Paris. Morning, Ritu.
Morning, Megha. That's correct. The G20 meet did come out with some strong voices for the EU leaders and giving them a deadline of October 23rd. That's the next EU summit. And by then they have to come up with a resolution plan. There were various pointers that were discussed and various steps that the Eurozone ministers, Eurozone policymakers could take. Some of them weren't accepted by the bankers. Some of them were very welcomed. Amongst them, you have the 440 billion worth of billion euros worth of the fund. Part of the fund could be used for buying partial insurance for the bondholders who are at the maximum risk at this moment. There were discussions of the haircuts that many of these banks were going to take. Remember, back in July, they had discussed that there would be a 21% haircut that many of these lenders would take. But now it seems that there have been proposals of 40 to 50% haircuts, which many of these banks are opposing. Other measures include plans to, of course, recapitalize the banks across the Eurozone, across the European region. Around 40 to 50 banks could be named which may be recapitalized, and also their capital adequacy would be increased. They have actually agreed for a mandatory capital surcharge of between 1 to 2.5% for some of the biggest banks, including the likes of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan across the world. And the final details of that would be out in the first week of November when they meet in France. The IMF, of course, has said that there should be perhaps an overall EU-wide deposit insurance scheme. Remember, one important factor coming out from Trichet, who's the ECB president, set to retire soon, and he said that one should relook at the EU treaty so that one member's fault is not being made to pay for by the rest of the EU zone. So the treaty relook could also be in the offing.